My name is Liam, and if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that family isn't always who you can count on. A year ago, I made a decision that changed everything. I quit my dead-end job and started my own online business. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I was ready to grind. I had saved up a little money, done my research, and had a solid plan. My family, on the other hand, thought it was the dumbest thing they had ever heard. I still remember the way they laughed when I told them. We were sitting around the dinner table, and I had just worked up the courage to announce it. My own business? My mom snorted. Liam, you can't even keep your room clean. What makes you think you can run a company? My dad chuckled, shaking his head. You need a real job, son. Something with benefits. Look at your brother. Nathan, he's doing it right. Yes, my older brother Nathan. The golden child. He had a stable job, a nice car, and the undying approval of our parents. Compared to him, I was nothing. Nathan smirked at me from across the table. So what are you selling? Get-rich-quick schemes. I gritted my teeth. No, I've been learning digital marketing. I'm starting an e-commerce site, and I didn't even get to finish before they all burst into laughter. You? E-commerce. My mom wiped a tear from her eye. Oh, this is rich. You don't even have a business degree, my dad scoffed. You'll be crawling back in a few months, begging for help. That night, I went to bed feeling humiliated, but also more determined than ever. I was going to prove them wrong. The next few months were brutal. I worked insane hours, living off instant noodles and caffeine while pouring everything I had into my business. There were times when I thought they might be right, that maybe I should just give up and get a real job. But every time I doubted myself, I remembered their laughter. That was all the fuel I needed. Then, about a year later, everything changed. One morning, I woke up, checked my sales dashboard, and nearly dropped my coffee. I had just crossed 6 figures in revenue. I had done it. I had built something real. And that's when my family came back into the picture. It started small. A few passive-aggressive comments from my mom like, "Oh, I guess your little project is actually working." Then my dad, suddenly curious about what I was doing. And of course, Nathan, who went from mocking me to suddenly being so supportive of my entrepreneurial spirit. Then came the requests. At first, it was just little things. My mom wanted me to help out with some bills. My dad hinted that his car needed repairs. Nathan joked about how, since you're rich now, you should take your big brother out for a fancy dinner. At first, I brushed it off. I figured they were just testing the waters, seeing if I'd actually hand over money. I had no problem treating them to dinner or helping out with a bill here and there. After all, despite everything, they were still my family. But then, things escalated. Fast. One evening, my mom called me out of the blue. Liam, sweetie, we need to talk. I could already hear the tone in her voice, the same one she used when she was about to guilt-trip me into doing something. What's up? I asked. Well, she sighed dramatically. Your father and I have been struggling a bit financially. It's nothing major, but we were thinking, since you're doing so well now, maybe you could help us out. You know, just until we get back on our feet. I frowned. How much are we talking? Oh, not much, she said quickly. Just $20,000. I almost dropped my phone. 20,000? Yes, sweetheart. And it's not like we wouldn't pay you back. You know we always support you. I nearly laughed at the irony. They always supported me? Yeah, right? I hesitated for a second before responding. I don't know, Mom. That's a lot of money. What do you even need it for? There was a long pause. Then she cleared her throat. Well, your father and I were thinking about remodeling the kitchen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't for medical bills. It wasn't for an emergency. They just wanted to upgrade their damn kitchen. Mom, I'm sorry, but that's not something I can just, Liam, she snapped, her voice turning cold. You owe us. We raised you, fed you, gave you a roof over your head. The least you can do is help your family. There it was. The classic guilt trip. I sighed. I appreciate everything you did for me growing up, but that doesn't mean I'm a bank. Before she could respond, I heard my dad in the background. What's taking so long? Tell him we'll take 30 if he's feeling generous. 30. I hung up. That should have been the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. The next day, I got a text from Nathan. Nathan texted, Yo, heard about Mom and Dad. Kinda messed up that you won't help. I replied, They want money for a kitchen remodel, Nathan. Nathan texted, So? They're our parents. If I made as much as you, I'd help them in a heartbeat. I responded, Then you give them the money. Nathan texted, I don't have it. I replied, Exactly. He left me on read after that. But the real explosion happened that weekend. I was at home, enjoying a rare day off, when I heard loud knocking at my door. I checked my phone, no texts, no calls. My stomach twisted. I already knew who it was. Sure enough, when I opened the door, there they were. My parents, my brother, and oh, great, my aunt and uncle, who had somehow been dragged into this mess. I barely had time to react before my mom shoved past me and marched into my living room like she owned the place. My dad followed, looking pissed, and Nathan just stood there with his arms crossed like he was about to watch a boxing match. Behind them, my aunt and uncle lingered in the doorway, clearly dragged into this drama for backup. I exhaled sharply. What is this? Mom spun around, her hands on her hips. Liam, we need to have a serious discussion about your selfishness. I pinched the bridge of my nose. You showed up at my house. Unannounced. Dad scoffed. Yeah, because you refused to help your own family. I folded my arms. I offered to help when you actually needed it. But I'm not giving you 30 grand for a damn kitchen. Mom's face turned red. You're being dramatic. Oh, I'm being dramatic? I let out a dry laugh. You're the ones banging on my door demanding money like I owe you something. Nathan finally spoke up. Dude, it's not a big deal. You're making bank now. You could give them the money and not even feel it. I turned to him. Oh, so if it's not a big deal, why don't you take out a loan for them? Nathan shifted uncomfortably. That's different. I shook my head. Of course it is. That's when my uncle decided to chime in. Liam, in our culture, we take care of our family. It's not just about money, it's about respect. I clenched my jaw. Respect? You mean like how they laughed in my face when I told them I was starting a business? How they told me I'd fail? That kind of respect. My mom threw her hands up. Oh my God, Liam, are you seriously still mad about that? We were just joking. And look, you proved us wrong. You should be grateful we motivated you. I stared at her in disbelief. You don't get to mock me, bet against me, then take credit when I succeed. She huffed. So this is how you treat your own mother? After everything we did for you? Dad shook his head. I told you this was a mistake. He's always been selfish. I felt something in me snap. You think I'm selfish? I worked my ass off for a year to build something for myself while you sat there and laughed. Now, because I actually made it, I suddenly owe you. I gestured toward the door. Get out. Mom gasped. Excuse me. You heard me, I said, my voice cold. Get out. For a moment, there was silence. My mom looked genuinely shocked, like it had never occurred to her that I might not just roll over and give them whatever they wanted. Then her face twisted into something ugly. Fine. But don't come crying to us when you realize family is all you have. I scoffed. Funny. You didn't seem to think that when you were laughing at me a year ago. She stormed out, my dad right behind her, muttering something under his breath. Nathan shot me a glare before following. My aunt and uncle lingered awkwardly for a second before shuffling after them. And just like that, they were gone. I closed the door and exhaled, my heart still racing. I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because if there's one thing I've learned about my family, it's that they don't give up that easily. For the next few days, I didn't hear a word from them. No calls, no texts, nothing. It was weird. My family wasn't the type to just drop something like this. If anything, I expected them to double down. But instead, it was radio silence. At first, I thought maybe they'd finally taken the hint. Maybe they'd realized I wasn't going to give in and decided to leave me alone. Maybe I was free. But I should have known better. The peace didn't last long. A week later, I woke up to nearly 20 missed calls from my mom and a flurry of texts from Nathan. My stomach sank. Nathan, bro, you seriously messed up this time. Mom's crying. Dad's furious. You need to fix this. They're saying you took it too far. I stared at my phone, confused. Took what too far? Before I could even reply, my phone started buzzing again. Mom. I let it ring. Then Dad. Ignored. Then Nathan. Ignored. Then, I got a message from my aunt. Aunt Sarah texted, Liam, I don't know what's going on, but your parents are telling everyone you're abandoning them after everything they did for you. They're really upset. Call them. I groaned and threw my phone on the bed. So that's their game now. They couldn't manipulate me, so they were trying to turn the rest of the family against me. Classic. A few hours later, I finally gave in and picked up when Nathan called again. What? I said flatly. Dude, what is wrong with you? He snapped. Be more specific. You insulted Mom and Dad and now they're devastated. I let out a dry laugh. Devastated? Because I wouldn't give them 30 grand for a kitchen? Nathan sighed heavily. You don't get it. It's not about the money. It's about family. You're rubbing your success in their faces and acting like they don't matter. I clenched my jaw. I'm rubbing it in their faces? Nathan, they were the ones who mocked me for starting my business. They told me I was an idiot and that I'd fail. Now that I didn't fail, they suddenly feel entitled to my money. And when I said no, they ran to the whole family to make me look like the bad guy. Nathan was silent for a moment. Look, I get it, he finally said. They were wrong to doubt you. But dude, you're rich now. 30 grand is nothing to you. I shook my head. That's not the point. It's my money. They don't get to insult me and then expect a payout. Nathan exhaled sharply. Whatever, man. Just know everyone's talking about you. Mom and Dad told Grandma, and now she's pissed. Uncle Mike thinks you're greedy. Even Aunt Sarah is saying you're being harsh. I rolled my eyes. Of course they brought Grandma into this. She was the ultimate emotional weapon. Liam, Nathan said, his voice quieter. Just come over and talk to them. If you don't, things are gonna get ugly. I already knew things were ugly. But something told me this was only the beginning. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I was about to walk into the lion's den. When I pulled up to my parents' house, I could already tell this was going to be a disaster. My mom's car was in the driveway, along with Dad's, but there were more cars than usual. Nathan hadn't mentioned this was turning into a family intervention. I knocked once before pushing the door open. The second I stepped inside, I was hit with the heavy scent of Mom's signature vanilla candles, probably lit to make everything feel warm and welcoming. Too bad it didn't work. I walked into the living room and saw them all sitting there. Mom, Dad, Nathan, and Sarah, Uncle Mike, and, of course, Grandma. Mom was the first to speak. Liam, she said, putting on her best heartbroken mother face. We need to talk. I stayed standing. About how you tried to turn the whole family against me? Dad scoffed. Jesus, Liam, cut the attitude. We wouldn't have to tell them anything if you weren't being so damn selfish. I crossed my arms. Right. Because I'm the selfish one here. Grandma shook her head in disappointment. Liam, sweetheart, I don't understand. Your parents gave you everything. And now, when they need you, you refuse to help. I clenched my jaw. Grandma, I did offer to help. I was fine with paying a bill, helping them out if there was an actual emergency. But they don't need help. They want money for a kitchen remodel. And when I said no, they ran to you guys to make me look bad. Mom gasped. That's not true. I turned to her. Oh, then tell me, Mom, did you or did you not tell Grandma that I was abandoning you? She opened her mouth, then shut it. I smirked. Yeah, that's what I thought. Uncle Mike leaned forward. Liam, this isn't just about the money. It's about principle. Your family supported you your whole life. I let out a sharp laugh. Supported me? When? When they laughed at my business? When they told me to get a real job like Nathan? When they mocked me for taking a risk? Aunt Sarah frowned. Families joke around. Liam, it doesn't mean they don't love you. I turned to Nathan. What about you, Nathan? You think I owe them? He hesitated. I mean, yeah, a little. I stared at him. You're serious? He shifted uncomfortably. Dude, they raised us. They sacrificed for us. It's not crazy to think you'd give back. Giving back is one thing, but this isn't giving back. This is extortion. Dad's face darkened. Watch it, boy. I didn't back down. Or what? You'll cut me out of the family? Newsflash, I was never really in it to begin with. You made that clear when you laughed in my face a year ago. Silence. Mom's lip trembled. Liam, don't say that. You are part of this family. I sighed. Then start acting like it. Family doesn't treat each other like ATMs. Family doesn't manipulate and guilt trip. Family doesn't turn everyone against one person just because they didn't get their way. Nobody said a word. Then Dad let out a sharp breath. You know what? Fine. If you want to be so ungrateful, go ahead. But don't come crawling back when you realize money can't buy you a family. I stared at him. You've already made it clear that I don't have one. And with that, I turned around and walked out the door. As I got into my car, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because something told me they still weren't done trying to get what they wanted. And next time, they wouldn't be so subtle. I had spent the next few weeks bracing myself for what I knew was coming. My family wasn't the type to let things slide, especially when money was involved. At first, it started off subtly. Some distant cousins began giving me cold shoulders. There were a few awkward replies in the family group chat. But soon enough, it escalated. My grandma stopped responding to my texts. Aunt Sarah, who I thought was somewhat reasonable, unfriended me on Facebook. Then came the email from my dad, the one that made my heart drop. It was CC'd to nearly every relative on both sides of the family. Subject: disowning a disgrace, Liam. Your behavior has shown us your true colors. You have made it clear that money matters more to you than family. You have humiliated us, turned your back on the people who raised you, and refused to show an ounce of gratitude for the sacrifices we made. Since you no longer wish to be part of this family, we are making it official. Do not contact us again. I stared at the email for what felt like an eternity. My hands clenched into fists. Unbelievable. This was their final move, the ultimate guilt trip. They wanted to paint me as the villain, as if I had abandoned them, when all I had done was try to build a life of my own. Yet, despite everything, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of hurt. I'd held on to the faint hope that, maybe, just maybe, they would come around. That they would understand that my business wasn't just a passing phase, but something I was passionate about. That they'd see I wasn't some failure. But now, this email shattered that illusion completely. They wanted me gone? Fine. But they were about to regret it. I wasn't going to let this slide. If they wanted to paint me as the bad guy, then I was going to tell the full story. So, I spent the next couple of hours writing up the most honest, unapologetic email of my life. Subject: the truth. Since my own parents have decided to blast me to the entire family, I think it's only fair that everyone knows the full story. For those of you who don't know, my parents and brother mocked me when I started my business. They called me a failure, told me to get a real job like Nathan. They laughed when I struggled. Now, 1 year later, that same business is successful. And suddenly, they believe they deserve a cut. They didn't need help with bills. They didn't need money to survive. They wanted $30,000 for a luxury kitchen remodel. When I refused, they ran to everyone they could and painted me as a greedy monster. But let's be clear, this was never about family. This was about control. They don't care about me. They care about what I can give them. And now that I've finally set boundaries, they're throwing a tantrum like spoiled children. If any of you still believe their sob story, that's your choice. But I won't be manipulated, and I won't be guilt-tripped. Mom, Dad, Nathan, I hope your new kitchen is worth it. Goodbye. I hit send and waited. And let me tell you, the fallout was something else. The first call came from Aunt Sarah. She was furious, but not at me. I knew something was off, she said. They made it sound like you just cut them off for no reason. Then Grandma called. Liam, sweetheart, I had no idea they were treating you like that. I'm so sorry. One by one, family members began reaching out. Some were apologizing for believing the lies. Others just wanted to gossip. But the best part? People started to turn against my parents. Uncle Mike, who had always been one of their biggest defenders, sent me a text. He said, I don't blame you. That's insane. Nathan, on the other hand, was furious. He texted, nice job, you just embarrassed Mom and Dad in front of everyone. I responded, they embarrassed themselves. He texted back, you could have just ignored them, but no, you had to be dramatic. You've completely ruined your relationship with them. I stared at his message, a smirk forming on my lips. Ruined my relationship with them? Good. That email was the final nail in the coffin. My parents went on the attack, cutting off all contact with me. No more guilt trips. No more manipulative messages. Nathan, always their golden child, stuck by their side, but by this point, I didn't care. Meanwhile, half the family was on my side. The other half stayed neutral, but one thing became painfully clear. My parents' perfect reputation was shattered. And as for me, I was finally free. For the first time in my life, I didn't need to prove myself. I didn't need to seek their approval or constantly fight for their respect. I didn't need to be their punching bag. I was done. And it felt incredibly good. In the end, I realized I didn't need to sacrifice my happiness or my goals just to keep the peace with a family that only saw me as a means to an end. The emotional weight lifted once I cut ties with them. It was painful at first, but ultimately, it was the best decision I ever made. Now, my business is thriving, and I'm finally living life on my terms. No more guilt, no more manipulation. What do you all think? Did I handle this the right way, or should I have tried a different approach? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.